I'm Naz Asghar. I'm from the Alzheimer's Society. I'm the project lead for the Sahara project. So what we do is we support the South Asian communities of Greater Manchester who are affected by dementia. So we raise awareness of dementia in the community in Greater Manchester, as well as support them on a one-to-one and in a group setting. So basically what we do is we raise awareness of dementia. So obviously there's lots of different types of dementia. So we will go around communities raising awareness of dementia. Because obviously dementia is one of the biggest health challenges facing society and the UK's biggest killer currently. 1 in 3 people born today will develop dementia in their lifetime. So the Alzheimer's Society, what we're doing is we won't rest until we have a world where dementia no longer devastates lives. And 1 in 3 people, I think we can all appreciate that is devastating lives. So there are lots of different types of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is just one of them, and I think that is the most common type of dementia. But also in the South Asian community, vascular dementia is a very common type of dementia, and that is because of that's mainly due to ill health. So a lot of our community is affected by vascular dementia. So what we try and do is we raise awareness in the community with regard to how we can look after our health and how we can sort of understand the early signs of dementia so that we can go for an early diagnosis. Because one of the things that we're seeing is that our community aren't reaching out for early diagnosis. So they're reaching crisis point before there is an actual diagnosis. And when they reach crisis point, often it's too late. And when I mean it's too late, the diagnosis is sort of maybe 2 to 3 years later than what it should have been, which means that the dementia is often quite advanced. So what we're trying to do is educate the community so that that's not the case, so that we can actually say to them, look, dementia is not a natural part of aging, and Alzheimer's disease is actually a disease, just like cancer is a disease. And it's a disease of the memory that we need, it's a disease of the brain, and that we need to understand in our society, in our community, that we need to remove this taboo and this stigma around dementia.
I ask you about the symptoms of Alzheimer's. How significant is it to look out for the symptoms, and how early should you look out for them age-wise?
Are you asking me specifically what the symptoms are and what we should be looking out for?
Yeah, what you should be looking out for.
You should be looking out for them as early as you can. So if you have got any concerns in terms of any of these symptoms, then you should go to your GP. Memory loss, so that's one of the big ones. And I'm not just talking about you go to the garage and you've forgotten what you're looking for, because we all do that. And that's just something that you're distracted on a daily basis. But I'm talking about when over a period of sort of 3 to 6 months, when you really are forgetting something on a daily basis that you might do on a daily basis and you're forgetting it. So for example, problems recalling things that happened recently, events, misplacing things, losing things. Difficulty concentrating, that's another big symptom, or planning or organizing. So for example, struggling to make decisions, solving problems, or following a series of steps. So an example of that would be if you were cooking a meal and all of a sudden you just can't remember the sequence of how you would cook that meal. Problems with language and communication. So this is a big one where you would muddle up your words in a sentence and you would not know how to communicate, and you're struggling to make the sentence and use your words in a sentence as you normally would. Misunderstanding what is being seen. So some people with dementia and Alzheimer's, they will hallucinate and they will see things that aren't normally there. So a common thing is that you might see a deceased person, so you know a deceased brother or a deceased relative, or you will look in the mirror, a person with dementia, and they don't recognize themselves. So hallucinations, being confused about time or place, so not knowing what time it is in the day. Not knowing, you've had your breakfast, you don't remember having your breakfast, not understanding the day it is, the time it is. These are things that you need to look out for. And another very common one is mood changes or difficulty controlling emotions. And this comes because of the loss of cognitive function. So people with dementia often become very frustrated. So they will become angry and agitated and irritable, sad and frightened. So you can imagine that somebody all of a sudden has a loss of cognitive function. So that can be quite frightening. So that's something that will come out in it will come out in your emotions. Often, people with dementia will remember memories from the past rather than current memories. So you could describe it actually like a bookshelf, that the Alzheimer's is a disease actually that often people with Alzheimer's, they might not remember memories from yesterday, but they will remember memories from the past. So you could describe it like a bookshelf, like that the last books that you put on the top, if you shake the books, the last books will fall off, but the ones at the bottom will stay at the bottom. So the old memories will remain, but the newest memories from sort of last week, they will disappear. And that's a very common thing with people with dementia or Alzheimer's, that they regress to old memories, but the most new memories, they will actually forget those. And what I would say to manage those, I think this is what you're asking me, is that rather than confuse that person, you should just go with them. So if somebody's talking about, and I have got an aunt as well who often talks about my childhood. So if I was asking her about what she cooked yesterday, she won't remember that, but she will talk
Yeah.
about my childhood and she will refer to my childhood.
Yeah.
So I won't confuse her by repeatedly asking her what she cooked yesterday, because she won't remember that. But I will let her continue about my childhood stories. And this is very sad. I know this is very sad, because
Yes.
you actually want them to remember what happened yesterday, but she can't remember that. And me
Yeah.
prompting her will not, she's not going to recall that. But the comfort for her is that she's remembering those memories from the past. So I will let her continue talking about memories from the past. And what I would say to you about the wandering, this is a very common thing, unfortunately. People with dementia often can get quite agitated and want to leave the home. I've got a case study of a lady that we support, and she often leaves the home because we don't feel that we want to lock our loved ones in the home. We don't want to imprison them in the home, but we also want to safeguard them. We want to make sure that they're safe as well. And if somebody doesn't understand, sometimes they don't understand the difference between day and night. So, for example, if they wake up in the middle of the night and they're not understanding, so it's one of the, if you remember, one of the symptoms or signs of dementia can be that you don't always understand, or you don't always remember if it's day or night. So somebody with dementia may wake up in the middle of the night and think it's day, and then they may think, okay, I'm going to get ready and I'm going to go out. And that could then perhaps put them in harm's way because they'll go wandering. And that's what you've explained, isn't it, to me? and then you will have to call the police, and then the police will have to be alerted. God forbid if that person ended up in harm's way. Thankfully, the police were alerted, but we've had exactly the same happened to lots and lots of different people. And often the police will find them, but God forbid if that wasn't the case. And this is the problem. We have to make sure that that person is safeguarded.
What best advice would you give to someone that has got this condition, and where is the best time to go and ask your GP? Or
We have a service called Sahara. We support people all in the whole of Greater Manchester. So if anybody has got any issues with their memory, or if they're concerned, they can reach out to us. We have a dedicated phone number, which is 0161 470 6048. And we have an email address, sahara@alzheimers.org.uk. So you can reach out to us and we can advise you. But also, if you have any concerns about your memory and they have been going on for a period of time, please reach out to your GP and ask them to support you with getting going for a memory test or going for a brain scan, because this is how you will get diagnosed for dementia. Now, there are certain key obviously, if you're an older person, so age is one of the key factors. If you're older, then that's one of the factors that will increase dementia. So that's one of the risk factors. And there are other things that will increase the risk of getting dementia. So, for example, high blood pressure. If you have high blood pressure, diabetes, if you've had a stroke, if you're overweight, smoking and drinking, being physically inactive, and also being socially inactive and isolated. And people don't realize that, because if you're not using your brain and if you're not engaging with people, that's something that is going to increase the risk of dementia, and that can lead to depression, which can also increase the risk of dementia. So these are all things that we need to look out for. And actually, these are all things that in general we should be looking out for, because we all know that these are things that we should be looking out for, because we should be looking out for our health in general, exercising more, looking after our health and well-being, our mental well-being. So if you have got any concerns, we need to reach out to the GP and we need to say to them, listen, please, can you support with this, because I've got concerns about my memory. But it really is critical that we try and get an early diagnosis. And I would stress to you that, again, that dementia is not a natural part of aging. It is a condition which is brought on by several diseases, and that, especially in our culture and our society, it should no longer be a taboo or a stigma, because we need to address this. It is one of the UK's biggest killers, and that we need to address the fact that the South Asian community still feel that there's a cultural taboo, and that we should sort of talk about this openly in the community. And in terms of positivities, early diagnosis is very important, because if we get the early diagnosis, we can work towards helping to get more support, you see. So we can be aware of the symptoms and we can help to sort of maybe delay that. So for example, if you have Alzheimer's, there's drugs that you can go on that can delay the symptoms, and also you can look after your health more. This is something that, unfortunately, there's no cure for dementia. So I can't give you any really good news, unfortunately. But this is something that, unfortunately, we have to be honest here. It is something that in our community we don't talk honestly about these things, and we have to be honest about these things. There are many reasons why people get dementia, and I don't think we talk honestly about these things. But if we catch it early enough, so the positives are that if we catch it early enough, we look after our health and we look after our diet and our well-being, yes, then it can be prevented. Vascular dementia can be prevented because, for example, if we look after our health, we can potentially reduce the risks of something like diabetes or stroke, and then we could prevent vascular dementia. So that is a positive.
Can you just tell me who notices the symptoms first? Is it the patient or the person who's looking after them, or the one
Yeah.
on the outside looking in? Is
That's a good question, actually, because I think the answer to that is probably both. I think that the person probably knows, but the carer who's looking after the person probably is the one that alerts the person that there's something going on. I would imagine that a lot of the time it depends on the type of person. So, for example, if you are already in the healthcare industry and you're receptive to knowing that there might be something wrong, then you'd be okay and say, yes, I want to get this sorted out and I want to get the diagnosis. However, sometimes people are quite stubborn. So I'll give you an example of that. When we've been going out into the community, and with no disrespect to men at all here, when we've been speaking to men and we've been saying, here's a leaflet about dementia, they've said, no, I don't want to take it because if I take it, I might get dementia. So I feel that there's a little bit of a taboo and they don't want to know about it because they almost think, oh, I'm going to take it, I might get dementia. So sometimes somebody's very stubborn about it and they're very stubborn about the fact that, no, there's nothing wrong with me. So if you're going to have that type of attitude, then you're not going to be receptive to going and getting help, are you? Whereas there's other people who I feel that I speak to and they're very, oh, there's something wrong with my memory, I can't remember everything, and they're paranoid already and they're desperate that they want the diagnosis in the first place. So, but I would imagine that a lot of the time that if somebody's living with somebody, they can understand them and they know them very well. They can start picking up the signs that that person, their loved one, there's something going on. And the people that we assess, so for example, I was speaking to somebody last week, a case study, and his mother had dementia. And they said to me that they knew there was something wrong because they started seeing the signs of it. For example, incontinence, she was forgetting things, she was doing things that were totally out of character for her. They saw all the signs and she didn't see any of those signs and she wasn't admitting it. So when it's an older person, I would say that the carers around them generally see the signs. And when it's a younger person or somebody who's still got a lot of their faculties, I think that person themselves understands and sees it themselves. I mean, I wasn't working with the organisation during lockdown, but at the moment we're fully working with the community in their homes. So when we go out to the community, we work with people in their homes. So we'll go and we'll assess them in their homes and we work with them in their homes. So I don't believe that you can achieve what you need to remote working at the moment. You have to go out into the community and you have to go and assess people in their homes, especially in the Asian community, because they like to see people face to face. And in terms of what we have in the community, what we have planned, we're looking to do more groups because one of the biggest issues that we have is when we're going out into the community and we're assessing somebody. So, for example, if we go and assess somebody, uncle in the community who's got dementia, we need to then signpost him to a culturally appropriate group that he can access because he might be. So, for example, we went to assess an uncle a couple of weeks ago, and he was very depressed and isolated in his home. And he was actually very upset, and he couldn't speak to us without being overwhelmed with emotion, crying, very upset, missed home. And all he wanted to do is he wanted to go and sit in the mosque all the time, but he can't do that because he's got dementia and somebody needs to be with him. And there is nobody to go and sit with him because his children work, there's nobody to spend the time with him unless there's a carer that can go with him. So what would benefit him is some sort of group that he could go to, which was a proper dementia group that he could go to. And so what we want to try and do is we want to try and establish some culturally appropriate groups that people with dementia can access so they can get out of their house, so that can reduce loneliness and depression and isolation for people like that uncle. So what we're looking to do is we're trying to set up memory cafes so that they can go to these groups, that they can spend some time with other people, that they can do some activities as well as they can use their mind, they can use their cognitive function. Because one of the things that will delay the dementia is using your mind, using your cognitive function, as well as doing things, activities, sensory things, as well as communicating with other people. And actually, this is a really good thing, sharing your feelings, sharing what you're going through with other people who have also got dementia, who understand what you're going through because they're also of Asian background, who are living in this country, who are missing back home, you know, these type of things. And also they've got carers who are going through the same thing. So we're trying to set up groups that other people, that people can access. So that's one of the things we're looking to do, really, because in Manchester, we just don't have enough of this type of thing. Culturally appropriate groups that the South Asian community can access. We are advisors that deal with the South Asian community. So that's community that are Hindi, Bengali, Sikh community, all of that community. So yeah, we do speak some of those languages. And you know, we understand their cultures as well, so we can advise accordingly. हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का नाम सहारा है। हम लोग अपने लोगों के पास जाते हैं और डिमेंशिया अल्जाइमर्स के बारे में हम लोग इंफॉर्मेशन देते हैं। अगर किसी को असेसमेंट चाहिए हम असेस करते हैं। अगर लीगल एडवाइस चाहिए हम हम उनके साथ मशवरे करते हैं, एडवाइस देते हैं। जो भी आपको ज़रूरत है हम आपको मदद कर सकते हैं। हमारा नंबर है 0161-470-6048। जो भी आपको मदद चाहिए हम आपको मदद कर सकते हैं। So the best 3 tips is go to your GP and get help. Number 2, speak to somebody, don't keep it to yourself. And number 3, look after your health, yeah, because that is the best thing you can do to help yourself, look after your health. My social media, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Asghar. And you can also email me naz.asghar, naz.ashgar@alzheimers.org.uk. Our email address is Sahara, SAHARA, at Alzheimer's, ALZHEIMERS.org.uk.